Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. I hope you've had a fantastic week and things are settling down for you a little bit more. As I said last week, we're really working on some of the efficiency pieces, and I find that one of the key areas that we struggle with from an efficiency point of view is actually trying to do everything ourselves. So one of the main areas I think really demonstrate this is around us trying to do everything around the bookkeeping and data management area of our firms. So what I thought I would do is get an expert in, Damian Scodella from Square Penny. I had the pleasure of meeting Damian just before everything actually went a bit pear-shaped. We met at a conference, which was the last conference that I did and I travelled for before COVID hit us and hit us hard. And Damian has, for 10 years, he and his team have developed a outsourced finance department that typically is an on-site model at the client's workplace. So Damian has, and his team, which now stands at about 25, their focus has been working with business owners and internal staff to improve the efficiency of their financial administration, and this allows for better quality information to be produced, which effectively will help the business to make well thought out business decisions. So I think it's super important, particularly right now. Square Penny operates in various industries with no specialisations. They're software agnostic as they believe the process or financial management is across all software. So Damian, can I give you, that was a bit of a formal introduction there. Can I give you, can I just ask you to explain your business and talk about yourself and then what you think the main product of the business is and around, that we would traditionally call bookkeeping, but I know you've got a slightly different view. So take it away.
Thanks, Sam, for having me today. It's actually a pleasure to be able to talk about what we do and our services. Look, as you said, we've been around for 10 years. Our model is certainly an outsourced finance department. We have 25 staff and they are all working mums. They're either seasoned accounting professionals or bookkeepers with 10 to 15 years experience. They both go on site to the client work site or also do work remotely from home or our office. I guess for us, bookkeeping is traditionally an after-the-fact event, but I like to call what we do is an outsourced finance department, but really focused around financial administration, which really encompasses a number of areas. It's not just recording stuff. It's also looking at the efficiency and making things easier to do, and then be able to provide that information to the client so they can actually do something with the information. In the past, we've been compared to being a bookkeeper because it's just the easiest thing to compare us to. But one of our focus is really centred around proactive in the here and the now. Don't come in 3 months later after all the transactions and after the ship has sailed, but be proactive and actually work with the business owner to give them the information they need. Because we all want the better quality information we have, the better quality decision making we can actually make each and every time. So without information, how do you make a decision? So that's really what we've been trying to push our clients to do, and we've been, I like to think we've been successful at doing that, which has then helped them do the basic things like sleep at night, not have to worry about where their cash position is, not have to worry about have I invoiced this or have I paid for that, and not being exposed to any risk in their business from a financial administration point of view.
Fantastic. I'd like to drill down a couple of those things that you just said. When we work with firms in particular, I think one of the curious things that I find a lot of people say is, accountants in particular say, is that we haven't seen this shift or the digitalization of our clients because I think sometimes the information is being still really old school in thought. So if a mistake's made, we fix it up at end of year rather than this constant, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're really talking about on-time data. And we haven't, we haven't seen, I don't think, the digitalization disruption that everyone, and I know I have been predicting for the last 10 or 15 years because of that fact, is because we're still, and some, a lot of our clients are still in the mindset of, I'll just fix it up at the end of the year rather than this, exactly what you were just talking about now. And then in the efficiency piece, when we're getting ready for end of year, there's this big part that, particularly, when we're looking at processing jobs, that there's a lot of cleanup and everything, which I consider completely out of scope when you're doing end of year, because it should be already up to date. So then getting people and getting, providers such as yourself into the clients, we're not going to have that problem. And so we actually get way more efficient at doing what we're great at, which is, processing end of year, getting compliance, and then getting that information so we can quickly react around the tax, etc. Would you agree with that? And that's one of the, when you work with accountants, that's one of the biggest areas that you see increasing the efficiency?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you're saying. And to support that, there are all the pieces of software available today to make any organisation efficient. However, those software still rely on human beings to actually do things. And whilst human beings have choice, then they will always take, generally, when it comes to financial administration, the easy road, where what we're really focused on is our aim is to produce a good quality set of financial information. So then when that financial information from a financial administration is complete and it goes to the external accountant, that external accountant doesn't have to rework, ask questions. Their yields fundamentally should improve because of the quality information that they're receiving. So then consequently, they're allowed to be efficient and don't have to do the rework.
Absolutely.
And that's critical. And I guess the faster tax agents and external accountants embrace that activity, that other organisations can make this process extremely efficient and accept that information from a third party, instead of doing it themselves, they will actually, in the end, be more efficient themselves and actually literally make more money because the rework is less. But that is a notion that we continue to work on, and it's represented by the quality of work that we do. That we don't get the questions, we don't get the rework, we don't get the clarifications, because the financial systems these days, from a technology piece, the information allows you to store it there. So therefore, the external accountant can access that information whenever they want, which is completely transparent, which is how you want to operate. You don't want to operate in these two silos, whereas you've got the financial administrator and then you've got the external accountant. You want people working together. So if we're as transparent as we possibly can be with all their information, it just makes that external accountant the work that they do a lot easier to do.
Mm-hmm. Can you just outline to me maybe how you work with accountants, or how you see that this type of model works with accountants, and what you really enjoy when you do actually work with them?
So I'll give you an example of something that's occurred in the last 6 to 8 weeks, which is representative of the last 10 years. So we got introduced to a client by their external accountant, and the external accountant was taking a proactive approach to the client's work. And the client's work was very complex, a number of financial softwares, and because of how we work, that we know how the software works, we know how to deal with the volume of transactions efficiently, and an external accountant isn't necessarily geared up or structured that way. Although the accountant has lost some revenue because we're now doing a piece of work, what it's actually allowed the external accountant to do is to create spare capacity to actually do work for the remaining of their clients at their rates. So although they would significantly lost maybe $50,000 worth of revenue at the lower level, but their volume would have been high, it's allowed them now to go and do that part, allowed us to do what we're really good at, which is producing a quality financial file, which then allows them to go and do the external planning, the business advisory part, and that compliance part a lot easier than if they were in the business. In this situation, this external accountant, and it was a sizable firm, wasn't trying to be in the business, but they're not structured that way. And we're structured that way. And I guess what I love about this for all of our staff is it's like making a cake. So completing the financial administration is exactly like that. It is messy. It's messy at the start, and you methodically work through your recipe, which is your structure, and you end up at making a cake, and it tastes great. And same in financial administration. You end up going through your processes, and you have a good, clean set of quality books that you can make decisions on, and the parties after it can do the work. And all of our staff are geared the same way. We like helping people. We like solving problems. So that's what we really do. What we're best at doing is solving those problems that external accountants have or clients have. And when you get that right, the relationship between Square Penny and the external accountant just improves, because everyone knows the expectation of what the two parties understand it to be. So the expectation is then higher because this is what it should be, and so your deliverables match that expectation. I also like it that if you don't deliver, you're quickly found out. So I like that element of, as a business, but I like that element of risk, that you don't have any option but to deliver all the time.
Absolutely, and I think there were a couple of key points there, particularly around the data and the immediacy of it, as you said, so you can actually then have good quality data that you can actually start being proactive, get in front of it. Because I mean, one of the biggest blocks I always had with advisory was business advisory is waiting for the data, or you are basing decisions on data that's old, and then and we accountants, that's not our magic. Our magic is obviously strategy, tax strategy, getting end of year done super efficient, so we can then leverage off other opportunities. But even if you're just a compliance firm who really just wants to do what you do fabulously, this makes so much sense, because doing your style of business is actually a very different model from ours as well, and this gives more efficiency, in that piece. So another thing that I think is kind of interesting that I'd like you to drill down is when we talk about the words outsourcing and offshoring and everything, I think that there's a little bit of ambiguity with those words. So could you just give me your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I see outsourcing as you act like that you're part of the client's culture by sitting in the chair at the client's workplace. However, your financial responsibility, your management responsibility, your accountability is actually to another organisation. So therefore, that's the outsourcing model, that you're not responsible. There's no one, you're not accountable to someone in that organisation from a employee-employer relationship. Okay. Fundamentally, then you do have two people that you're accountable. You're accountable for your work, for the work that we do, and making sure it complies, which is it's for the client. And then you've got the traditional employee-employer relationship with the outsourcing firm, where you're guided around your culture, your ethics, your skills, your development, and where that comes from. Because I guess if you're an employee and you're working for a business, sometimes you're limited by who your manager is, how they operate, how they manage. But if you operate in this outsourcing model and you're working with people that are there to guide you, develop your skill, because as you develop, you improve that skill, and therefore you're able to do better quality work for a client. That model works for the client because they don't have the responsibility of having to manage an employee, having to manage another human being, and anything associated with the downsides of employees. Whereas, and that gives them really great comfort. You know, they can reduce the cost associated with recruitment. They don't have to worry about training. They don't have to worry about how they integrate in their culture, because we've done all that research.
Yeah.
Now then you take the other option. We've got a completely Australian workforce. Then you take the option of offshoring, and offshoring is also difficult, because offshoring typically is repeatable processes that don't require you to think, and you can go as fast as you can to gain efficiency. And so offshoring, I don't believe, fundamentally works in a client that requires financial administration, which is covered in so many different areas. It's not just one process. It might be one activity of the process, but not necessarily all of their processes. And that's why I don't believe offshoring really works for clients that require active arrangement. Unless you actually employed staff overseas and you had direct management lines, well, that's just an employee-employee relationship anyway.
Yeah.
So there's a clear distinction between the two for me.
Thank you, and I think that's really important to get the distinction, so we're very clear on which model that we're talking about there, and I think you answered that really well. So we've kind of talked about what's worked well. Can you give us any examples with your outsourced model and working with accountants where there are some of the blocks or where things might not go as well, and what you've learnt from that or what you've seen?
Yes, absolutely. And I think in this situation where it comes down to that relationship and the independence of the external accountant and where they sit with the client. We've had a number of introductions from external accountants to clients, and the working relationships works really well. However, if in the situation that we face a number of times, we're in the client, we're working with the client, and they may not necessarily be happy with their external accountant. And so we're in the middle of being the peacemaker between the external accountant and the client, because it's always easier to keep your external accountant and work with them, have a conversation with them, because it's much easier to maintain a client than lose a client. But there's been situations where the external accountant hasn't been supportive the other way, and they've just decided to protect their fee base as opposed to working with the three parties, the client and us, and ensuring that the client gets the best outcome. And that's been difficult. So when you leverage up your staff to build a relationship with an external accountant, and that doesn't come to fruition, you quickly lose the volume of clients that you're working with if that external accountant isn't in unison with what your core values are. And that's happened a couple of times to us over the journey, and you learn about that, and you learn to build relationships moving forward and how they work. Sometimes you want to get both the client and the external accountant want to go too fast, and sometimes you've just got to go at the right speed to make sure you dot the I's and cross the T's, instead of just trying to get the outcome, which is having your financial system ready to go to do the compliance piece. So you have to pull the reins back and be courageous enough to have that conversation. And sometimes people don't like to have those more meaningful conversations because it's attacking. It can come across as attacking, but you do your best to ensure that it comes across professional all the time.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something there, and it doesn't matter where the collaborations are, whether it's staff or with an external provider such as yourself. or internally, is that we really need to be efficient in any of these collaborations. We need to be very clear on what our values are. So then when you're interviewing people or you're going to work with people, you've got a very clear decision-making matrix on that as well. And then it's always also interesting to know your clients too, because if you find that quite often some of the clients that you have the most uncomfortable relationships with don't line up with your values. So this is, another efficiency piece is long-term, to have these long-term relationships, is to be very clear on your values, and then how do you get those conversations going so you're clear on the people that you're bringing into your network. Would you agree to that? That's probably what I heard from that is it's actually a breakdown in the mismatch of values there, not necessarily anything else. So, there were a couple of words that were value orientated, which was courageous, which is one of my favorites, and curious, I heard as well, and very much the collaboration piece. We're all in it for the client. Would you agree to that?
I totally agree, and that's what is the key. Now you can't work with everybody because everyone's value set is vastly different. But you hope that your core value set is identified when you're having the conversation with people, and they understand what you stand for, and then it allows you to work. Now there's been a number of accounting relationships that haven't worked because of our value sets aren't the same, and that's all it comes down to. It's not that we're doing a bad job or the external accountant's not a great communicator, whatever. It's just our core values are different, and so therefore you have there is that breakdown. But it's perfectly acceptable, because we all as human beings can't work all with each other because we're also built differently.
Absolutely, and that's I think one of the key software efficiency pieces that we work on is if you can get that up right up front, and then you're not going to spend time either courting or going down that path, particularly when you have clients involved as well, because then there's another human involved that you don't want to go either way with. Fantastic. So do you have how we normally end out these things is sort of some tips or tricks. So if you had to talk to accountants around the tips and the tricks that they could have either in their own business or dealing with clients, and they don't necessarily even have to be with the financial administration, what would that be? Because I know that you work extensively in our industry, and what would those 3 tips be, particularly given what's going on at the moment?
I think first and foremost, always be passionate about what you're doing. I know it sounds obvious, but it's quite a broad, more of a broad tip. But invest in quality systems, and I think with accounting firms, there has been this reluctance to move systems, to change systems because of demographic or costs. And I think it's important to be progressive in those quality business systems, whether they're HR systems, whether they're tax systems, and the compliance systems. So it's invest in those quality systems over a period of time and be open to them, because there are efficiencies to gain out of it. They're not all perfect, but that's okay. As long as you're getting the best out of the system being current, you're always going to win. Seek the right support in your business. So don't necessarily go for the cheaper quality service provider, because there may be issues with that. Sometimes you need to overpay and get the service and get it done, because there's some greater efficiencies coming off it for you at a later stage. And also, I think one of the other tips is really start having conversations with your staff around operating in the business, accountability, improving the systems, and then once you're getting that feedback, actually start to implement some of the improvements that your staff do provide in terms of feedback to you. Most of the time, the collective staff have the answers to all of our dilemmas. Yet sometimes we're reluctant and we believe that our way is the right way, and the reality is our way is just a way, but the collective way is the way. I think they're more general business observations over the course of the last 20 years for me that are really important, and they ring true for the accounting industry as well.
Yeah, it's such a curious thing, and absolutely with you. One of the big efficiency play pieces, which I think you're alluding to there, you actually got to take time to make time. So, getting your staff involved in this and having conversations, and then getting the systems right, actually going through that process, is super important. I know we struggle with it because we're an hourly for dollar traditional style of business, but obviously going forward with that, engagement of staff in the process, systems, and then the experts to help you bring it in. And, I want to reiterate there from an efficiency point of view is make sure you understand the behaviours and the processes first before you put in any system, and then make sure that that's the best system to, speak to your processes. And there's lots of great system people and everything out there, but for me, it's that conversation and the behaviour piece first, and then forward. So great tips. Thank you, Damian.
No problem, Sam.
Well, thank you so much for your time. As always, a pleasure talking to you. And for everyone else out there, be brave and continue the conversation.